Do you remember the good old days when all you had to worry about was getting your homework done and getting home before curfew, before you had to worry about jobs, projects, working, when you could long for a summer vacation and a winter break? Well, this is the podcast for when you realize that life can be hard. Hold on one moment.
Finally, he's gone. Last thing I need to hear is him plugging another podcast. Come take a listen to my show, Adulting Ain't Easy, every other Wednesday on the Journey into Comics Network.
The following
is a journey into comics.
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 Network.
Production. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Puhr 360. I kind of forget what episode I'm on now. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind coming back from Africa. I just wanted to bring you an episode, kind of an update on what's been going on since then. I know this episode's coming late in the day. It was kind of unexpected. I had some stuff going on at home. I couldn't really break away to record an episode, and this weekend was kind of a mess just from when I got in from the flight, dealing with jet lag, all of that. So it's been a bit crazy, but I want to make sure I got you some content. Just want to share kind of what's going on, how my experience with keeping up with things like San Diego Comic Con, all that was, while I was on an amazing trip in Africa. And I'm also kind of behind on even listening to podcasts on the network. Like, just before that, I'm still like 3 weeks behind on Journey into Comics. I had it downloaded, just didn't have time to actually listen to it because the lack of internet and all that stuff, and just not being able to like have time just to sit and tune into a podcast. So I was kind of picking up that. It's really weird to listen to like past episodes after the events we're talking about just happened. Like, it's all there. Like, right before I started recording this, I was listening to Nate and Tyler talk about what they think is going to happen with San Diego Comic Con, what Disney's going to announce with their slate, and what we're going to see with the likes of maybe all of the announcements, like the Eternals and Black Widow are all red herrings, and it's actually like they're actually like hiding out like Fantastic Four or the X-Men or whatever, which we know now is not the case. Anyone who listened to any of the news from the Comic Con know that Black Widow is definitely a movie. The Eternals is definitely a movie. We saw the cast at Hall H, so that's all kind of been put to rest. But speaking of San Diego Comic Con and the events around it, a bunch of trailers dropped right around San Diego Comic Con, either from the con itself or just other like. It was a big week, regardless if it was comic book based or entertainment, like pop culture based. So we saw a ton of trailers drop, and I saw, because I'm 7 hours ahead, I was getting all this stuff in the really late at night or really early in the morning, depending on when. So I was just, whenever I got access to the internet, I was downloading them on YouTube to watch later. So I remember watching like the new trailer for Top Gun, which looks pretty intense, but it still looks like every new Tom Cruise movie where we're seeing him just doing all this stuff himself, risking his life, showing that he's not too old to do this kind of stuff. But the fact that we're getting Val Kilmer back and getting just more Top Gun, maybe more homoerotic volleyball, we don't know what we're gonna see yet. But so I saw that trailer. The one I actually watched first was the Jay and Silent Bob Reboot trailer, which I think dropped a little before Comic-Con. Which I was very pumped for, just because I haven't heard them talk about it. I've ever seen the pictures and watched the little YouTube Road to Reboot things they would do. So you see the trailer and see how many people they were able to bring back. Like, you see the likes of you saw Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, you saw it's Elizabeth something. She was Jay's love interest in Strike Back. And there's a whole plot about them having a kid, and then they had just a ton of cameos, like Chris Hemsworth was doing one, and just seeing other people that have done their movies in the past. So I thought that was a really good, very fan-servicey film. I know, even though the plot seems very similar to what we saw for Strike Back, I'm still down for it. I don't know if it's actually going to come to theaters. I know they're doing this road show, so they're bringing it to the Chicago area, so I kind of want to see that, but it's $50 a ticket, and the 7 o'clock is showing, so the only other option is like 10 p.m. and it's a weeknight and it's going to be downtown. I'm not thrilled about that, but I don't know if it's planned to come to theaters. So we'll see. I got to kind of figure out what's worth it there, but I definitely want to see it. I have yet to see a Kevin Smith film in theaters. Just when the ones that come to theater, I wasn't in the mindset to go see them. And when I wanted to see them, they just never played nearby. Like, I remember trying to see Yoga Hosers, and the only theater I found could play it was like a half hour away, and it was only playing at like 2 p.m. on a weekday, and I was working, and it just doesn't work. So we saw that trailer. Saw the Cats trailer, which is that Tom Hooper. It's the movie based on the Broadway musical, and it's weird the way they did it with the CGI and the human-like faces and human-like shapes, but still the fur and the ears, and it looked very odd, and it was very, it's just, I don't know if I'm going to see it. I'm going to wait and see more trailers on it, but it just looks very uncomfortable, and there's Taylor Swift in it with like a bedazzled can that's like, says catnip. Sorry about that. It was, the wife called up. I'm recording this from my car, so if there's a little bit of background noise, it's from the car running, but you do what you gotta do when you record what you gotta record. That's the joyful life of being a podcaster and being outside the studio. So I was talking about Cats, which I think is just weird. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Did see another film, which is It Chapter 2. Saw that trailer, which has me all excited. And I heard recently the reported runtime is 2 hours and 45 minutes, which is epic because the first It Chapter miniseries is only like 3 hours and like 15, 20 minutes. I can't remember how long it actually was. So we're already between the two chapters of the film coming out are, I think, well over 5. So I'm pretty happy about that. So we'll have to see where this takes us. Saw a movie, I don't know why it's getting made. It's just people like to take inanimate objects and bring them to life. I saw a trailer for the Playmobil movie. Like, you know, Playmobil, like little kids figurine toys that all have like, they're kind of like Legos for like young kids. So don't know why that exists. It looks like a spy movie. I'm very confused. So a trailer for Taika Waititi's new film Jojo Rabbit, which is about a kid. Who I think the kid's name is actually Jojo Rabbit, and he has an imaginary friend, and that imaginary friend is Hitler. It looks it's very satirical, and I'm just, it's weird, but it's very Taika Waititi, and Taika Waititi's playing Hitler, so I don't know, it's a little like, not like Winnie the Pooh, it's the one with the boy and the tiger, but the tiger is Hitler, and the Jojo Rabbit's the boy. It's odd, but I'm kind of curious to see what that movie's about. So I'll trailer for Harriet, which is the Harriet Tubman biography that looks really good. Cynthia Erivo, who did Bad Times at El Royale. She did Broadway. She's done Widows. So she's doing this as her first, like, I feel like, big starring role in a film. So I'm pretty excited for that. I'm always a good fan of a biopic. So A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is the Tom Hanks, Mr. Rogers movie that looks really good. It looks like it should right in the feels the same way the documentary last year did. Tom Hanks can really become like any living person, it seems like. But definitely Tom Hanks, nicest guy in Hollywood, and Mr. Rogers is the nicest guy ever. So definitely, I think the pairing is great. I'm going to see if it's going to really cover his whole life, just as later in life, and then with like flashbacks. So, but yeah, either way, trailer has me. Saw a trailer for a movie I didn't know anything about, which is called The King's Man, which is a Kingsman prequel movie. So it's basically the origin of I don't remember who's the main characters, but it's basically the evolution of the Kingsmen, how they started as like these warriors at times, and then it's just through their conquest stuff they became royal and didn't want it. So they kind of, it's just how they established it. Like, it's, I didn't know about the movie until it got to the end when it showed the Kingsman tailor shop at the end scene. I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. But it's the same kind of fighting style. I'm definitely excited for that. Those Kingsman movies are just, I love the style. I love the just the energy they have. So I think that's definitely the way to go. I think that's all the trailers I watched. I downloaded these, so I watched them, and then I remember watching the Jay and Silent Bob Reboot 1 multiple times because it looks great. I didn't even say who was playing Bluntman and Chronic. So Bluntman is actually going to be Val Kilmer, which is awesome. I'm glad they got him on. It looks cool. It's playing the very Batman v Superman style, and then Melissa Benoist, who plays Supergirl on the CW, is playing Chronic. So they've switched her gender in this reboot. So definitely excited to see that. I know beyond the cameos and all the cast in general, I'm glad to see more Kevin Smith films, and I'm hoping this springboards into more things. And yeah, definitely want to make sure he gets my money for that. So definitely excited there. I know the big thing was that that at San Diego Comic Con was like the Hall H with MCU dropping a good chunk of Phase 4. I know it's been probably covered. I haven't got to that point yet in listening to comic book news and JIC episodes. I don't know I really don't want to touch on it again because I'm sure it's already been out there and you've heard about it enough. So I'm going to leave that be. But just wanted to say it looks like it's going to be a pretty good set of films, and they're going to have you because it looks like unlike Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Netflix shows, these new MCU series are going to be must watch to be able to keep up with the content of Phase 4. These shows are very much embedded. We'll go one right into the next film. Like WandaVision's going to feed right into Doctor Strange because she's going to be in Doctor Strange. So definitely get excited for that. Other note I have here before I really get into my Africa trip was kind of an update. You remember probably 15 episodes back, I did my my pet series on like childhood pets, fish keeping, the love of pets, all of that. And I talked with Tyler about our hobby and love of fish keeping, and being since I was out of the country for 2 weeks and I had my mother-in-law come by and feed that everything set out and labeled, but still you're out of there for 2 weeks. If something happens, if a fish tank gets ick or something like that, like they're not going to know what to do, and you're kind of at the mercy of a problem there. So yeah, it was very interesting to be a part of that and to see. Sorry, I kind of got derailed there. So it was interesting to see, kind of put all your faith in someone else's to make sure everything stays alive, that the lights are all working, that there's no leaks, nothing looks dead, everything just kind of running like so. The only things that I left one of my lights on. So for 2 weeks, the plants I had one of my tanks, my first big tank, had no light for 2 weeks. So thankfully none of the plants died. They're not doing so hot now, so I need to get some more fertilizer in the tank and probably put some and I had the light back on. The only bright side of that tank I was battling a blackbeard algae problem, and that blackbeard algae was dead and gone, so that's the bright side. But all the fish in the tank were alive and doing okay. I actually had a baby in the tank, a little fry of a black molly, which is weird because I only had one black molly in there and there's no other offspring, so must have been pregnant when I got her, because I know with those live bearer fish, which you probably could care less about, they get impregnated once. They can store that stuff for pretty much life and just make babies whenever they feel like it. They think, like, there should be more of me. Kind of glad that doesn't work with people. Could you imagine if every person who ever had sex could just hold on to your sperm and just make a baby whenever they felt like? That would just be terrifying. The only issue I had was one of my tanks that had all my guppies in it crashed. I noticed when I got back that there was no like bodies or anything like that to announce, but it was a bunch of us were just like gone, and my snail population was booming. So I know they took care of everything that was dead. So I'm unfortunately gonna restart that, but it gives me an excuse to kind of break down that bow front tank. I think I'm going to rescape it, put new gravel in. I think it might be something to do with the gravel. I got just the cheap gravel from Home Depot, and it was a little bigger than I wanted, and I have a ton of extra substrate now, so I think I'm just going to pull that out, break it down, clean it pretty good. Obviously keep the filter running in a different tank just to keep it going, and then gravel it, put water in it, replant it, put some fertilizer in there, add that habitats and get that tank back up and running properly. So fingers crossed I'm able to do that this week. It's been kind of hectic because I got back the other day, Friday, jet lagged. Weekend was just trying to get the house back in order, deal with some stuff outside. Then my parents came in, so it's been a crazy few days. So hopefully once things mellow out and I'm actually have a few nights free, I can actually get all that done. So fingers crossed I'm able to get that going, and I'll probably put some pictures up and maybe have Tyler back on an episode in the future. Even though Tyler is Mr. Network these days. He's doing a great job on Journey Comics with a new co-host, and he's back on Podcastry. So if he has a spare moment, I know he's doing some cool stuff with his tanks, so definitely want to have him back on at some point so we could fish nerd out about it. So hopefully that happens. But now let's get to the main event. I put this poll out while I was still in Africa about what you want to talk about, because when I was at when we were in Cape Town, the only way I actually got news, they just had CNN. It was like CNN, 2 movie channels, and then sports, which is their sports were mainly like soccer and rugby and stuff. So those are my options. So I watched some CNN, and I watched some movies that they had on there. Like I watched A Wrinkle in Time, which I had no intention of watching. It was just on, and I was awake, and I just watched it. Not a bad film. Little weird, not really my cup of tea. I wouldn't have seen it in theaters. The only fact that it was just a captive audience. Oh, I didn't even touch on that when I'm talking about the movies. Nice thing about international flights, they have a bunch of movies on there. So I watched Bumblebee, which was actually a really good movie. Definitely a lot better than any of the Michael Bay ones. Maybe except the first one. The first one was good, just because it introduces. But Bumblebee definitely elevated the whole franchise. What else did I watch? I tried to watch the new How to Train Your Dragon, but I feel like I missed something, so I don't actually know if I actually watched the second one. I thought I did, but maybe I never finished it, because I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. None of this makes sense. So I didn't end up finishing that. I watched Happy Death Day to You, the sequel to Happy Death Day, which took that in a new direction. It was also really good. I'm trying to think. I have watched a couple movies. I just can't remember what they were right now. But it definitely nice to have they had a bunch of MC films. They had Captain Marvel on there. They had Age of Ultron. I think Thor: The Dark. They had some random MCU films on there. Some older films. They had TV and stuff. But sometimes you just want to sleep. I ended up sleeping for good chunks of that 20 hours I was on an airplane. So do what you got to do. But it was nice to see some movies I didn't get a chance to see. But speaking of Africa, so like I said, I put a poll out there because while I was up one night, I was watching the CNN report on the Mueller testimony, which was kind of ho-hum. It was a lot of they had a lot of good answers, but it wasn't really. There was no smoking gun. There was no, wow, he said that. It was very much, I'm here because you made me be here. Everything I said have to say is in the report. I'm going to answer yes and no questions until you let me leave. It's basically the gist of that. Honestly, I didn't really write up any points on that. I know basically the big point and takeaway, if the main reason Trump did not get indicted or convicted of anything was because he is the sitting president of the United States. He did answer it. Could you convict him of a crime once he's left office? Mueller said yes. So basically, I feel like that's a really good indication that wrongdoing did happen. Trump is not exonerated, off scot-free, free of this illegal witch hunt, as he wants to say. So that was that. So I was like, I put it up there. I'm like, do you want to hear about how America's seen abroad versus this, and people want to hear about America's treated abroad. I didn't dig. So it's mainly just me sharing my experience of being an American in a foreign country. I know we're going to touch about it a lot on Adulting East. Tomorrow we're going to talk about our Africa trip. I know there's a foodies planned the next time Liz and I get together with the rest of the gang to talk about it. And I think we're going to talk about the movie they filmed at one of the game reserves we were at. Maybe we also talk about the new Lion King if we all get a chance to see it before then. We're going to try and cook some of the African food we tried, attempt that anyway. Some stuff I really think that Nate, Veronica, and Sarah will dig, so hope that all works out. So stay tuned for that. I know We'll tease it on adulting as well when that episode's going to happen on Foodies. So hopefully within the next few weeks, but we're all really busy and weekends can be hard to get together, especially once Liz goes back to school. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if they come up here, we go down there. We'll make it work. But being in Africa was actually really great experience. I had no expectations going in. I was just ready to see something new and to kind of figure out just how I've never left the United States before. I went on a cruise, but you're only in touristy areas. You're not really seeing the people. So actually being able to sorry. So it's been a long day. I didn't sleep so great, but being out in this world where it's very different from America, but at the same time it has a lot of the same issues and same problems. The only really nice thing I have to say about at least my first week is that I didn't hear or think about Trump once, compared to being back here where I've thought about Trump at least like once every hour, maybe multiple times in the hour, just through the news stuff. Like just this morning I saw that while Trump was signing the expansion in healthcare medical relief for the 9/11 first responders, he made a joke about, let's see if the stage holds, but if it collapses, at least we won't fall that far, which I think is the most classless, tasteless, just you don't say that. Like, literally what you're there to sign involves many casualties and a collapse of major buildings in New York City. Something that you were there, you lived in New York City when it happened. And I know he probably didn't mean it like that. He's just talking about the amount of people, and he's always kind of obsessed with with numbers and size of group and stuff. So he maybe didn't mean it like that, but I feel like that's just not what you say. I don't know. I feel like that's just what a bad taste in your mouth. But not being able to hear about Trump once was nice, and the only thing I really heard when I was at least in Johannesburg, which is still in South Africa, but it was about 16-hour drive north of Cape Town, or a few-hour flight. They said, like, God Bless America a few times to us as tourists when we were kind of in some of the shops, but yeah, it was really nice to, like, what happens a lot, at least, a lot of people from other countries and stuff visit South Africa. It's an international tourist destination the same way all people fly into, like, New York City or LA or San Francisco and all. They're just there for a different experience. But it was nice. I was able to kind of get away and see that, for the most part, at least, it seems like North America is not really thought much of. At least in Johannesburg, you got to see that, they could really care less. It's really, despite some, I'm sure, the people I'm interacting with don't really care too much about global politics and what this is doing. I noticed more in Cape Town, which is they have a big because they're the furthest point, so any like international shipping and receiving kind of uses Cape Town as like a stopover, because when you're going from Asia to the US or to other parts of Europe, you kind of go around Cape Town, which is the southern point where the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean meet. So kind of go up that way. But it was interesting. I know their own government's really weird and everything's kind of mismanaged. They have their police issues. One thing that's really nice about Africa is there's not really racism there. There's kind of a class system, more or less. Like with the same reason we have here, like with the upper middle class, like high class, lower middle class, poverty class. But there wasn't really a race designation there. Obviously, if you know anything about South Africa, there was apartheid, which was heavy racial divide. Black people, white people separated. If there was offspring of black person, white person, that person was illegal. It shouldn't exist. It was a bad time there. But since apartheid ended, things have really changed a lot. Yes, there's both white people and black people together in poverty and in some of these like shack communities. The same reason you see like upper middle class black white people living. It's not the near racial divide given where you are. So I think that's something that America could take a point on, is that look to Africa to see how to treat your fellow man better and not divide over these racial lines that we've seen. Yeah, I think like every big city, though, you can see that at least with Cape Town is that there are problems with corruption in the government. Their president is a lot like Trump. You can see just the misuse of government funds. They hosted the World Cup like 10 years ago, 8 years ago. I can't remember exactly when it happened, but you got to see that there was there wasn't enough for it. They just dumped money to get it ready for it, just like any company that's like any country that's hosting the Olympics. But they didn't think about the aftereffects. So now it's this big behemoth thing in a prime real estate. They can only be used for soccer, and you can't really fill that venue, so they're trying to get conscious stuff there. They didn't make it suitable for like rugby or other fields because the field size is different. So there's also mismanagement there. The police are kind of non-existent, so there's a lot of private security that monitor around, and yeah, it was very interesting to see. But for the most part, like America, I feel like we think in America about other countries more than other countries think about America. We just noticed like the import-export thing is something, but really it was so nice to be kind of cut off from that. I had limited access to the internet because when I was over there I didn't have like data, so I was out and about. I couldn't Google anything. I was just kind of at the mercy of other information, keep up with time, and then once I got back to my room, at least in Cape Town I had internet. When I was in Johannesburg, I only had like the main building had internet, like where we are at night had nothing. Just kind of had TV and just kind of kept up in spurts, like 20-hour delay in checking like any info, which is different than how I am now. So, but it was nice. I feel like we're so inundated with news and information living here that to get away from it kind of was a nice reason. I feel like I actually could think about other things and not have to think about the state of the world and what the president is tweeting, and what it means for us in the grand scheme of things. But I always thought it was kind of funny is that I know people in other countries kind of refer to United States America as America, but as the States. So good use of that to say like, where are you from? We're from the States, all that. And actually, being funny, and I shared it on the network group messenger about I was eating breakfast and I was hearing some I can't know if there are locals or other tourists, but they're talking about the Area 51 raid and how the government was actually like freaking out and actually put something out like, don't do this. We have the right to use like lethal force to protect the base. If people try and break in, there'll be consequences. So it was interesting to see like that, like a meme storm essentially went overseas and kind of trended worldwide, or at least continents away. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, I wish I would have done a little more. It's just been trying to get back. I know I'll be a little more eloquent when we listen to Adulting tomorrow, so that'll kind of be part 2, I'm sure, the many part series that Liz and I, when we talk, are going to be about our Africa experience. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for that. Should be out tomorrow morning. We're planning to record that tonight as you're hearing this. I'm recording this Monday morning. But yeah, really just excited to bring you some more content. Still looking to kind of retool the show a little bit in the coming weeks. I don't know what the full extent that's going to be yet, but I know it's going to be good. I'm going to try and get some more guests on. I actually was trying to get my father on last night. It didn't really work out, but I'm hoping maybe when he comes back we can make it happen, but I'm not hopeful. As much as my dad likes to talk, he likes to know what he's doing beforehand, so he doesn't want to say anything off the cuff that can be out there in the ether, which I really could care less about. But it is what it is, but I think that's where I'll leave you with this week. I definitely encourage everyone to